This is the first part of the video series that I'll be teaching Python. So what is Python? Python is a high-level multi-purpose programming language that can be used in web development, data science, machine learning, and so much more. Python runs on an interpreter that is written in the C programming language. To begin writing code in Python, we need to download Python. So firstly, head over to python.org and download the latest stable version of Python. After downloading it, head over to the downloads folder and run the installation process. Make sure to check the add python.exe to path. Next, click on install now. After a successful installation, the next thing that we need is an IDE or integrated development environment. So I will give you two options. The first option is PyCharm, which is a very popular code editor for Python. So to download it, head over to jetbrains.com and look for the PyCharm IDE. The second option is Visual Studio Code. And in this video, I will be using Visual Studio Code to keep things simple. So to download Visual Studio Code, head over to code.visualstudio.com and look for the version that suits your operating system. If you are using Windows, download the Windows version. And if you are using Mac, download the Mac version. After downloading it, run the installation and open it. After opening VS Code, head over to the extensions marketplace and search for the Python extension by Microsoft. When it appears on your right side of your screen, click on Install to install it. After installing the Python extension, head over to a desktop area and create a new folder. You can name it whatever you want. For me, I'm going to name it Python tutorial. Next, reopen Visual Studio Code and head over to the Files tab, and in the drop-down menu, click on Open Folder. And when the dialog opens, navigate to your folder and select it. And the folder will be open in Visual Studio Code. After opening the folder, next, we have to create a file inside that folder. Create a file and name it main.py or main.py. That is the extension for Python file. And on the right side, the file is opened, and this is where we'll be typing our code. The next thing I'm going to show you is the terminal. So this is where our code output will be shown. So let's begin by writing our first line of code. So type print braces, and within the braces, type quotes. Can be double quotes or single quotes. For me, I like using double quotes. And in the quotes, type Python. After that, save the file and click on the play button to run the file, and the output will be shown in the terminal, which is Python. The first thing you're going to learn are variables. So variables are like containers that is used to store some values in the computer's memory. So we'll begin by creating some variable. The first one is name, and we'll give it a value. For example, John. And the next variable will be age, and will be set to 25. And then the third variable will be GPA, and we'll give it a value of 3.5. And our final variable will be student. So this is a very important part. If your variable name has 2 words, make sure to separate the words with an underscore. And this is a good practice in Python. And this will be set to true. So this is a boolean value which only accepts true or false. So when we touch data type, you will know what boolean value is. So next, we're going to create a print statements to show the outputs of each variable or the values of each variable in the terminal. So the first one will be print braces, and within the braces we'll have to pass the variable which is name. That is our first variable, and we'll do the same to the age variable also, as well as GPA and student. So print age, and the third one print GPA, and the fourth one print is student. After that, save the file, and we have created all our variables. So let's run it. And in the terminal, you can see the output. We have John, it is the name, age 25, and GPA 3.5, and student is true. The next thing you're going to learn is data type. So we're going to check the data types of all our variables, starting with the very first one, the name variable. So to check the data type, you have to use the type function and precede it with the variable name, and at the end, you have to close it. And let me comment out the other print statements. So this is a very important part. To comment out a code, we have to use the pound sign in Python. So this comment won't be executed by Python. So when we run the code, Python won't execute the comment. So after running it, the data type of the name variable is str. So in the terminal, there's a str which stands for string. So the data type of the name variable is a string. So let's check the second variable, which is age. So we're going to do the same thing, precede the age variable with the type function, and make sure to close it at the end with the brace. And we're going to run the file again. And in the terminal, you can see class int. We have int short for integer. So the data type is integer. So the age variable is an integer. Okay. So let's check the third variable, which is GPA, using the same type function, and close it at the end and run the code again. And in the terminal, as you can see it's a class float. So the data type of the GPA is float. So float refers to numbers with decimal point. So let me comment it out. And onto the final variable is student. We're going to check the data type of each student. So the same thing, use the type function and make sure to close it at the end and run the file again. And in the terminal, you can see it's bool, class bool, short for boolean. So the data type of each student is boolean. So boolean refers to true or false. And it's like the on and off switch. It doesn't accept other value, only true and false. So that's it. We have a name variable, which is a string, and the age variable is an integer, and the GPA variable data type is float. Float refers to numbers with decimal point. And our final variable is student is a boolean value. It only accepts true or false. So this is the basics of variables and data types in Python. If you're still wondering what strings are, Strings basically refers to a sequence of characters. Alright, now I will be explaining multiple assignment. Multiple assignment is assigning multiple variables in one line of code. So to begin, I will create some variables in a normal standard way. So the first variable will be name, which will be equals to John, and the second one age. I'll give it a value of 25, and the third one is student will be set to true. After that, I'm going to create a print statement, and within the parentheses, I'm going to pass the name variable, and I'm going to do the same thing to the age and the age student variable also. So I'm going to save and run the file, and there it is, the output John 25 and true. This time, we are going to do the same thing, but using multiple assignment. So to begin, I will comment out all the variables, name, age, and student. And on the new line, line 7, I will declare all the variables separated by comma. So name, age, is student, equal sign, and on the right side, I will pass all the values of each variable in the correct order. So the first one, name, which is John, separated by the comma, followed by the age of 25, and the final one, which is true for each student. And if I save and run the code, we will get the same output, which is John 25 and true. Here's another example. So imagine if four students, John, Mark, Luke, and Paul, all scored the same GPA of 3.5. So if I run the code, obviously we'll get 3.5 for all students in the terminal. So now let's do it using multiple assignment. So to do that, I have to comment out all the variables, John, Mark, Luke, and Paul. And on the new line, I'm gonna type John equals Mark equals Luke equals Paul equals 3.5, all on the same line. So it is the same thing. So I'm gonna save and run the code. And there it is in the terminal. Just like before, we got 3.5. So this is the same thing, but we did it in a multiple assignment, all in one line. So yeah, this is the basics of multiple assignments in Python. So next, I'm going to cover user input, string concatenation, type conversion, and string formatting. So we are going to accept some inputs from the user using the input function. So the first one will ask the user his or her name. So input, what is your name? And we have to store this user input to a variable. So to do that, we have to precede it with a variable called name. And our second variable will be age, and it will store the age input from the user. So input, what is your age within double quote. Bear in mind that all strings are within double quote. Anything you see within quote is a string. So GPA input, what is your GPA? So the next thing, I'm going to create a print statement, and inside the print statement, I'm going to cover string concatenation. So this is a very important part. Pay attention to this part. This is what string concatenation looks like. So I'm going to type hello, and I'm going to concatenate with a plus sign with the name variable. So I'm going to pass the name variable here, And then I'm gonna type some string of text. You are then I'm gonna concatenate the age variable and another string of text. Yes, old. Your GPA is, and then I'm gonna concatenate the GPA variable. So that's it. I want to save the file. We have created three inputs and a print statement. So let's run it. And in the terminal, oh, there's an error. Invalid syntax. So it's because we missed a plus sign. I forgot to insert a plus sign after the name variable. So correct it, save it, and let's run it again. This time the error should be gone. So in the terminal, as you can see, what is your name? So type John. What is your age? 34. What is your GPA? I'm gonna type 3.5 and hit enter. Hello John, you are 34 years old and your GPA is 3.5. So I give it a small space there. Let me run it again. So John, and the age is 35. GPA, for example, 3.5. And the age is the print statement. Hello John, you are 35 years old. Your GPA is 3.5. So this is basically how string concatenation works. Now the next thing we have to notice is that the age and GPA, they are not strings. Actually, age, as we cover in our previous topic, it's a integer. So to do that, you have to precede the input function with a int, short for integer. So this will tell Python that we are dealing with an integer. And the same applies to the GPA because it's a float. So it's a decimal number, so it's a float. So proceed it with a float and make sure to close it at the very end. Now, when I run it, we will get an error. What is your name? John. What is your age? 34. What is your GPA? 3.4. And that's the error that I'm talking about. And that's a type error can only concatenate string, not into string. So this is a very important part you have to pay attention. Thing is that we are concatenating a mixture of int and string, and it's on the line 7 within the print statement. So what it means is that we have to change the age variable back to string. So to do that, you have to type str. So let's save it and run it again. This time we should get another error. What is your name? John. What is your age? Type 34 and the GPA 3.4. Now we have another error, and this time the error is on the float. The data type of the GPA, it's a float value, and there's a type error can only concatenate string, not float to string. So we're gonna do the same thing to the GPA variable. So we're going to convert the type to string. So to do that, type str. So let's save the file and run it again, and this time the error should be gone. So what is your name? Type John. You can type your name if you want. What is your age? 34. What is your GPA? 3.4. And this time the error is gone. So we have hello John, you are 34 years old. Your GPA is 3.4. So this is how type conversion works. Now there's a better way of doing it. There's a shorter way of doing it. So I'm gonna comment it out. This is a clean way. I'm gonna show you a clean way of doing the same thing. So I'm gonna type the print, and within the braces, I'm gonna use what it's called a string formatting. So to do a string formatting, make sure to precede everything within quotes with a lowercase f. So hello, and then we have curly braces. This time we don't need the plus signs. We have the curly braces, and within the curly braces, you type the variable name. You are same thing, curly braces, and then the age variable. You are 8 years old. And the last sentence, your GPA is, and we're going to pass the GPA variable within the curly braces. So this is a much cleaner way of doing the same thing. I'm going to save the file and run it. And as you can see, the same thing. So what is your name? John. What is your age? 34. What is your GPA? 3.5. So hello, John. You are 34 years old. Your GPA is 3.5. So this is the basics of string formatting. So yeah, we cover user input, string concatenation, type conversion, and string formatting. And hope you learned something new. I already explained what strings are, and strings are sequence of characters, and they cannot be involved in any math operations. And now I will be explaining different string methods. So to begin, I'll create a variable called full name and set it equals to John Brown. After that, I'm gonna implement the first method in a print statement. So print, and I'm gonna pass the variable full name and dot followed by the method name. So our first method will be lower. So what this does is that I convert everything to lowercase. So when I save and run it, you can see John Brown is all in lowercase. So the lower method converts string to lowercase. Now, our second method, print full name dot, and this time I'm gonna use the upper method, and it's the opposite of the lower method. And if I save and run it, and as expected in the terminal, John Brown are all in uppercase. All letters are in uppercase. So the upper method converts string to uppercase. Now let's move on to the third method. Again, I'm going to use the print statement. So print variable name dot followed by the method. This time, the method name is lower. So save and run it, and we got false in the terminal. And the reason is because the is lower method checks if all the letters in a string are in lowercase. If it's true that all letters in are in lower, it will return true. Otherwise, it will return false. Now let's move to the fourth method. I'm going to begin with the print variable name dot, and this time we're going to use a different method called is upper. So this is the opposite of is lower, and it checks whether all the string characters are in uppercase. And as you can see in the terminal, it returns false because only J and B are uppercase. So the is upper method returns true if all letters are in uppercase. Otherwise, it will return false. Right, let's move on to the another method. So print, pass the variable full name, followed by the dot, and then the method name. So this time we're gonna use a different method called capitalize. So this method is used to capitalize the first letter. If I save and run it, you can see only J is capital. All the other letters are in small letters or lowercase. So the capitalize method capitalizes only the first letter. So this is our fifth method. So let's move on to the sixth method. So print braces, and in the braces I'm going to pass the variable name dot and followed by the method name. So this time we're going to use a different method, and it's called the title method. So save and run it. And as you can see, only J and B are in capital. So what this method title does, it capitalizes the first letter of every word in a string. So let's move on to the next method. So print, pass the variable full name again, dot, and this time we're gonna use the find method to find heads if heads exist in our string of John Brown. So if you save and run it, you can see it outputs 2. So what this does is that it returns the index of a character. So J, let's try out J and run the file again. This time you will see that the J index is 0 because computers always start with 0, not 1. So J is in index 0 of the string. So let's try the different letter. For example, B. Save and run the code again. This time it returned 5. So B for Brown is in index 5. And the important thing you have to understand is that spaces are also involved in indexes. It is not ignored. So the find method returns the index of a substring. And if the substring does not exist within the string, it will return a negative 1. So let's try something that does not exist within our string. For example, letter A. And let's find letter A, save and run the code. And as expected in the terminal, we got a negative 1. And the reason is because there's no A in the string of John Brown. So our string John Brown does not have a letter A in it. that's the reason it's returned a negative one. So that is basically how the find method works in strings. So let's move on to the next method. So this method will be the replace method. So I'll begin with the print, pass the variable full name, dot, and the method name replace, and a set of parentheses. And this time within the parentheses, I will pass the string or the substring that I will replace. So I'm going to replace brown, and there's a comma, and what will I replace it with? So I'm going to replace brown with Smith. So make sure Smith is within uh, double quotes or single quotes. So save and run the code. And in the terminal, you can see we got John Smith, and it's no longer John Brown. So that is how the replace method works. It changes or it replaces the Brown with Smith. So we got John Smith. So the replace method replaces parts of the string. Let's move on to the next method. So I'm going to type print, set a parenthesis, and within the parenthesis, I'm going to pass the variable full name, followed by the dot. And this time we're going to use the is-alpha method. Is-alpha and followed by a set of empty parentheses. So what this does is that it will return true if all characters in the string are letters. So if I save and run the code, as you can see in the terminal, I got false. And you may be wondering why I got false, because the string John Brown is all letters. So let me show you why. The reason is because in the string John Brown, we have a space between John and Brown. That's the reason why it returns false. So if I get rid of the space, save and run the code again, this time it will return true. And in the terminal, as I've said, we got true. So if I give it a space again and run the code again, we will get false again because we have a space between John and Brown. So the is alpha method will only return true if all characters are letters. And it will return false even there's an empty space. So that's basically how the is alpha method works. So let's move on to the next method. So I'm gonna type print parenthesis, pass the variable full name, dot, and this time we're gonna use the is digit method. So this method will return true if the string is all numbers. So if I save and run the code, as you can see in the terminal, I got false. And the reason is because our string does not have any number. So to demonstrate this, I will create a new variable called weight, and I'm going to assign some value to it. For example, 56 kg. And then I'm going to print out the value of weight followed by the method is digit. And if I save and run the code, this time I got false. So what's this? If I remove the kg and run it, we'll got true because now we have 56 only in the string. There's no letter. So the is digit method will always return true if the string is all numbers. So let's move on to the next method. So I'm going to type print, pass the variable weight, dot, and followed by the method name. So this time we're going to use the method called is all num. So I'm going to save and run the code, and we got true in the terminal. So the method is all num will always return true if our variable contains letters or numbers only. So if I add a kg to 56 and run it, it will still return true as long as the string contains letters or numbers. So the is all num will always return true if the string contains letters or numbers. So let's move on to the next method. So I'm gonna type print, and this time I'm gonna use the first variable, print full name, and the method name will be count. So this time we're gonna use the count method. So this method counts how many times something appears in the string. So we're gonna count the letter O, save and run it, and as you can see in the terminal, we got 2 because the letter O appeared twice in our string of John Brown. There's one O in John and the second one is in Brown. That's why it returned 2. So the count method counts how many times something appears. So that is basically how the count method works. It only counts something that appears a couple of times within a string. Now let's move on to the final method. It's not really considered as a method because it's a built-in function in Python. And it's called the length function. So to apply it, you have to precede the variable name with the length function and wrap everything with parentheses, save and run it. And we got 10 in the terminal. So the length function will get the length of a string. So the length of a string John Brown is 10. So this includes the space between John and Brown also. So the length function gets the length of a string. So yeah, these are the common string methods in Python.